Captain Jake Murphy stared at the green screen in front of him. The message from the Zephyrian High Command was flashing red, which meant it was very important. He had been reading these messages for 3 days now, and they all said the same thing. The Vorthan Empire was coming, and they were destroying everything in their path. The bridge of the New Horizon was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Dr. Lisa Carter sat at her station, looking through reports from different planets. Her face was pale and her hands shook a little as she turned the pages. Lieutenant Ryan Blake was at his communication desk, listening to radio signals from across the galaxy. His headphones covered his ears, but Jake could see the worry in his eyes. "Captain," Ryan called out, pulling off his headphones, "I'm getting another message from the Altarian Defense Force. They're asking for help again." Jake walked over to Ryan's station. The young officer looked tired. He had been working for 18 hours straight, trying to keep track of all the messages coming in. "What are they saying this time?" Jake asked. Ryan pressed a button and a voice filled the bridge. The speaker sounded scared and desperate. "This is General Crix of the Altarian Defense Force. The Vorthans have taken our outer colonies. We need human military support immediately. Please respond. We know Earth has been silent, but we need your help now." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was waiting for him to say something. Dr. Carter had stopped reading her reports and was listening. Even the engineer, who usually stayed focused on his work, was looking up from his control panel. "Any word from Earth Command?" Jake asked Ryan. "Nothing, sir. It's been 4 days since Earth sent any messages to the Federation. Even the trade ships have stopped responding." Dr. Carter stood up from her chair and walked over to Jake. "Captain, I've been reading the medical reports from the attacked colonies. The Vorthans don't just conquer planets, they destroy everything. The survivors describe weapons that turn buildings into dust in seconds." Jake nodded slowly. He had heard similar reports from other sources. The Vorthan Empire had appeared at the edge of the galaxy 6 months ago. At first, the Galactic Federation thought they were just another new species wanting to join. But the Vorthans had other plans. They attacked the first Federation ship that tried to make contact. Then they started moving toward the center of the galaxy, taking over every planet and space station they found. "Sir," Ryan said, putting his headphones back on, "I'm getting a transmission from the Kepler station. It's Admiral Morrison from Earth Defense Force." Jake felt a small hope in his chest. Finally, someone from Earth was talking. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and Admiral Kate Morrison appeared. She was sitting in her office on Earth and she looked calm. Too calm for someone whose galaxy was at war. "Captain Murphy, this is Admiral Morrison. I need you to return to Earth immediately." "Admiral, what about the Federation worlds under attack? They're asking for our help." "Your orders are to return to Earth, Captain. Do not respond to any more. Federation distress calls, Earth Command out." The screen went black. Jake stared at the empty screen for a long moment. His crew was looking at him, waiting for orders. But Jake didn't know what to say. Earth was abandoning their allies when they needed help the most. Dr. Carter broke the silence. "Captain, I don't understand. We've been part of the Federation for over 200 years. We've always helped when there was trouble." "I know, Lisa. But orders are orders." Ryan raised his hand like a student in class. "Sir, should I tell the Federation ships that we can't help them?" Jake thought about it. The Federation had always been good to humanity. They gave Earth technology, trade partners, and protection when humanity was still new to space travel. Now, when the Federation needed Earth the most, humanity was going quiet. "No," Jake said finally. "Don't respond to anything. Set course for Earth." As the New Horizon turned toward home, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Earth never abandoned its friends. Humans were known throughout the galaxy for being helpful, peaceful, and always ready to support others. They worked as doctors, engineers, and peacekeepers on hundreds of Federation worlds. 3 days later, they reached Earth's solar system. Jake expected to see the usual traffic of cargo ships, passenger vessels, and patrol boats. Instead, space around Earth was almost empty. Only a few military ships were visible, and they were not the old Earth defense ships Jake remembered. These ships looked different, bigger, more dangerous. "Captain, Ryan said, his voice shaking a little. Earth Control is telling us to dock at Station 7. That's a military station. We've never been there before. Jake looked at the coordinates on his screen. Station 7 was on the far side of the moon, hidden from Earth's view. He had heard rumors about secret military bases, but he thought they were just stories. As they approached the station, Jake saw something that made his heart skip. The station was huge, much bigger than any Federation military base he had ever seen. And it wasn't alone. Through the viewports he could see other stations floating in the darkness, all hidden behind the moon. Dr. Carter gasped. "Captain, look at those ships." Jake looked where she was pointing. Docked at the stations were warships unlike anything he had ever seen. They were sleek and black, with weapon systems that looked years ahead of Federation technology. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. As the New Horizon docked, Jake wondered what Earth had been doing while the rest of the galaxy lived in peace. And why, when war finally came, Earth had chosen to go silent. The galaxy thought Earth was hiding in fear. But looking at those ships, Jake began to think that maybe Earth was hiding something else entirely. Captain Jake Murphy walked through the corridors of Station 7. The walls were made of metal he didn't recognize, and the lights were dimmer than on regular Federation stations. Everything felt different here. Heavier. More serious. A woman in a black uniform met them at the airlock. She was tall, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. "Captain Murphy, I'm Commander Alex Stone. Welcome to Station 7. Jake shook her hand. "Commander, I need to know what's going on. Why did Earth go silent? The Federation needs our help." "Follow me," Alex said. She didn't answer his question directly. "Dr. Carter and Lieutenant Blake can come too, but what you're about to see cannot leave this station." They walked through several security doors. Each one required Alex to scan her hand and eye. Jake noticed that the station was much bigger inside than it looked from outside. Hundreds of people in black uniforms were working at computers and control panels. None of them looked up as the group passed by. Finally, they reached a large room with a circular table in the center. The walls were covered with screens showing different parts of the galaxy. Some screens showed Federation worlds under attack. Others showed Vorthan ships moving through space like dark clouds. "Sit down," Alex said, pointing to chairs around the table. "What I'm about to tell you might be hard to believe." Dr. Lisa Carter looked around the room nervously. "Commander, how long has this place existed? I've never heard of Station 7. 53 years, Alex replied. "This station and 27 others like it have been watching the galaxy since before you were born." Lieutenant Ryan Blake leaned forward. "Watching for what?" Alex pressed a button on the table. One of the wall screens changed to show a detailed map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Vorthon positions. Blue dots showed Federation worlds. Green dots showed human colonies and stations. "We've been watching for them," Alex said, pointing at the red dots. "The Vorthans." Jake stared at the screen. "That's impossible. The Vorthons only appeared 6 months ago." "No, Captain. We've known about the Vorthons for 38 years. The room became very quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. 38 years? How? Alex pressed another button. The screen showed a woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. She was wearing a Vorthan military uniform. "This is Agent Marie Collins. She's been living with the Vorthans for 15 years. Before that, she spent 8 years learning their language and culture." Dr. Carter's mouth fell open. "You mean we have a spy inside their military?" "We have 17 agents inside Vorthan territory. Agent Collins is the highest ranking. She's currently serving as a tactical advisor to their 3rd Fleet commander." Jake felt dizzy. Everything he thought he knew about Earth was wrong. Why didn't anyone tell the Federation about this? Alex stood up and walked to another screen. This one showed battle footage from Vorthon attacks on Federation worlds. "Because we needed to learn everything about them first. How they fight. How they think. What their weaknesses are." She pressed another button. The screen changed to show detailed reports about Vorthon weapons, ships, and military tactics. "For 38 years we've been studying them. We know more about the Vorthon Empire than they know about themselves." Ryan looked confused. But why let them attack Federation worlds? Why not warn everyone? Alex turned to face them. Her expression was serious and a little sad. Because warnings wouldn't have been enough. The Vorthons are stronger than any single Federation world. They would have won anyway, but they would have been more careful, more prepared. Jake began to understand. So Earth let them attack to make them overconfident. Exactly. Every battle they win makes them think they're unbeatable. They're not studying their enemies anymore. They're just attacking and expecting to win easily. Dr. Carter shook her head. But people are dying. Millions of people. Yes, Alex said quietly, and that weighs on all of us. But if we had acted too early, billions would have died instead of millions. The screen changed again. This time it showed Earth's solar system, but it looked different from what Jake remembered. There were structures he had never seen before. Shipyards hidden behind asteroids, weapons platforms floating in empty space, and ships, thousands of ships. While the Vorthons have been conquering the outer rim, Alex continued, Earth has been preparing. We've built the largest military fleet in galactic history. We've developed weapons that can destroy Vorthon ships in seconds, and we've trained soldiers who know exactly how to fight them. Jake looked at the screen showing all those hidden ships. How did you hide all this? The same way we hid our agents, Alex said. Very carefully, and with help from people who understand that sometimes the galaxy needs protection, even if that protection has to remain secret. A new voice spoke from behind them. Hello, Captain Murphy. Jake turned around. A man in his 60s was standing in the doorway. He had gray hair and wore a simple black uniform like the others. But something about him made Jake think this man was very important. I'm Professor Sam Mitchell, the man said, walking into the room. I've been studying galactic military history for 40 years, and I can tell you that the Vorthons have made every mistake that great empires make when they think they're unbeatable. Professor Mitchell walked to the screen showing the galaxy map. They've spread their forces too thin. They've ignored their supply lines. And most importantly, they've assumed that all species fight the same way. Alex nodded. The Vorthons have never faced guerrilla warfare. They've never fought an enemy that could adapt quickly to new situations. They've never fought humans. Jake stood up slowly. So Earth's silence is almost over, Alex finished. Agent Collins sent us a message yesterday. The Vorthons are preparing for their final attack on the Federation core worlds. They think they've already won. Professor Mitchell smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. They're about to learn that humans have been waiting for this moment for nearly 4 decades, and we're very good at waiting. Ryan looked scared and excited at the same time. What happens next? Alex walked back to her chair. Next, Captain Murphy, you and your crew are going to help us end this war. But first, you need to understand exactly what Earth has been building while the galaxy slept. She pressed one final button. The screens all around the room lit up with images of massive space stations, advanced weapons, and ships that looked like they came from the future. Jake realized that Earth hadn't been hiding from the war. Earth had been preparing to win it. 2 weeks later, Captain Jake Murphy stood on the bridge of the New Horizon as it moved through the Kepler system. But everything looked wrong. The system that used to be full of mining ships and cargo vessels was now empty. The space stations were dark, no lights, no radio signals, nothing. Captain, Lieutenant Ryan Blake said from his station, I'm not picking up any life signs from the colonies. It's like everyone just disappeared. Dr. Lisa Carter was running scans with her medical equipment. The atmospheric readings are normal. No signs of weapons damage, no radiation. The people are just gone. Jake knew the truth, but he couldn't tell his crew yet. The human colonies hadn't been destroyed. They had been evacuated to underground bunkers built over the past 30 years. Every human settlement in Federation space had secret tunnels and hidden shelters that could hide entire populations. Sir, Ryan called out, I'm getting a transmission. It's coming from the Vorthon fleet. On the main screen, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms appeared. This was Commander Zix of the Vorthon 3rd Fleet. His yellow eyes looked cold and cruel. "Human vessel, you will surrender immediately. Your species has abandoned you. Your worlds are empty. You have nowhere to run." Jake looked at the screen calmly. "This is Captain Murphy of the Federation vessel New Horizon. We are on a peaceful exploration mission." Zix made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful? Your entire species has fled like cowards. Even now our scouts are entering your home system. Soon Earth itself will belong to the Vorthan Empire." The transmission ended. Jake felt a cold smile cross his face. Commander Zix had no idea what was waiting for him in Earth's solar system. Deep underground on Luna Station, General Chris Warren watched dozens of screens showing Vorthan ships entering human space. He was a big man with short gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. Next to him stood engineer Nina Ross, a small woman with red hair and bright blue eyes. "General," Nina said, looking at her tablet, "the Vorthons have taken the bait. Their entire fleet is moving toward Earth. They think we're defenseless." Chris nodded. "How long until they reach the inner system?" 6 hours. Their scouts will hit the asteroid belt in 2 hours. Chris pressed a button on his control panel. "Captain Adams, are your people in position?" On one of the screens, a man in black armor appeared. Captain Troy Adams was standing in what looked like empty space, but Chris knew he was inside a cloaked ship near the asteroid belt. "Ghost Division is ready, General. We've been waiting for this." Chris turned to Nina. "Are the sleeping giant systems online?" Nina's eyes lit up with excitement. "All weapons platforms are operational. The hidden shipyards are ready to release. The fleet and the new ships are performing better than we hoped." "Good. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can do when we stop being polite." Back in space, Commander Zix was feeling very confident. His fleet of 300 ships was the largest Vorthon force ever assembled. They had conquered 47 Federation worlds without losing a single battle. These humans would be no different. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "our scouts have entered the human asteroid belt. No signs of defensive positions, no weapons platforms. The system appears to be completely undefended." Zix nodded. "Of course it is. Humans are weak. They build factories and hospitals, not weapons. Send the scouts deeper into the system." What Zix didn't know was that his scouts were being watched. Hidden among the asteroids were sensor stations that had been tracking every Vorthan ship for the past week. Captain Adams and his Ghost Division had been following the scouts for hours, learning their patrol patterns and communication methods. "Ghost 1 to Ghost 7, Adams whispered into his communicator. "Vorthan scout ship is approaching your position." "I see it, Ghost 1, came the reply. "Moving to intercept." The Vorthan scout was a small, fast ship with powerful sensors. It was scanning every asteroid, looking for hidden human bases. What it found instead was Captain Adams, appearing suddenly behind it like a shadow. Adams's ship was completely black and made no sound as it moved through space. The Vorthans called it impossible technology, but humans had been perfecting stealth systems for 40 years. The scout ship never knew what hit it. "Ghost 1 to base," Adams reported. "Scout eliminated. No distress signal sent." One by one, the Vorthon scouts disappeared. Each time, Commander Zix received a report that the scout had simply stopped responding. His communications officer couldn't explain it. "Commander," the officer said nervously, "we've lost contact with 12 scout ships. The last transmission was all clear, continuing patrol, and then nothing." Zix felt the first touch of worry. "Equipment failure?" "Unlikely, sir. 12 ships don't have equipment failure at the same time." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Kate Morrison stood in the war room deep beneath the planet's surface. The room was huge, with screens covering every wall. Hundreds of officers were working at control stations, coordinating the largest military operation in human history. "Admiral," one of the officers called out, "the Vorthan main fleet has passed the outer marker. General Warren reports all systems are ready." Admiral Morrison had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. She was one of the few people who knew the complete plan. "Signal all units. Operation Sleeping Giant is now active." Across the solar system, things began to happen very quickly. Asteroid mining stations that had looked abandoned suddenly came to life. What the Vortons thought were rocks turned out to be hidden weapons platforms. Space that had seemed empty was suddenly full of human warships. On his bridge, Commander Zix watched in horror as his sensors detected hundreds of ships appearing out of nowhere. They were bigger than Vorthon ships and armed with weapons he didn't recognize. "How is this possible?" he shouted. "Where did they come from?" His tactical officer was working frantically at his station. "Commander, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. The humans have been hiding their entire fleet." Zix looked at the tactical display. His 300 ships were now surrounded by over 800 human vessels. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the message that appeared on every screen in his fleet. "Attention, Vorthon forces. This is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered our home system uninvited. You have attacked our allies. You have threatened our people. We have been watching you for 38 years. We know everything about you, your tactics, your weapons, your weaknesses. You wanted to see what humans do when we go to war. Now you will learn." The message ended, and space around the Vorthon fleet erupted in light as hundreds of human weapons opened fire at once. For the first time in their history, the Vorthons were not the hunters. They were the prey. And they were about to discover that humans had been very patient predators indeed. The space around Earth turned into a storm of light and fire. Human ships moved like dancers, fast and smooth, while Vorthon vessels struggled to keep up. Commander Zix watched his tactical display in shock as his ships started disappearing one by one. "Return fire," he shouted to his weapons officer. "All ships attack Formation 7. The Vorthons had used Formation 7 to destroy dozens of Federation fleets. It was their best battle plan. But when they tried to use it against the humans, something strange happened. The human ships seemed to know exactly what the Vorthons were going to do before they did it. On the bridge of the human dreadnought Iron Will, Commander Beth Taylor watched the Vorthon ships moving into their attack pattern. She was a tall woman with black hair and calm brown eyes. She had studied Vorthon tactics for 15 years, and she knew Formation 7 better than most Vorthon commanders. "Tactical," she said to her weapons officer. "Target their command ship's engines. Wait for them to complete the formation turn." "Yes, ma'am." Weapons locked and ready. Beth counted silently in her head. She knew that in exactly 12 seconds the Vorthon command ship would expose its weakest point as it turned to lead the formation. Fire! The Iron Will's main weapon was something new. Dr. Kevin Hayes had spent 10 years creating it in his secret laboratory on Europa. It fired a beam of pure energy that could cut through Vorthon armor like paper. The beam hit Zix's command ship, exactly where Beth knew it would hurt the most. Zix felt his ship shake as the engines exploded. Emergency lights flashed red all around his bridge. "Damage report," he called out. "Engines are down, sir. We're losing power to weapons. How did they know where to hit us?" Zix didn't have an answer. In all his years of commanding fleets, no enemy had ever predicted his moves so perfectly. On Earth, Admiral Morrison was watching the battle from the war room. She could see every ship, every weapon, every movement on her massive screens. "General Warren, deploy the Marine units." General Warren pressed a button on his control panel. "All Marine transports, you are clear for boarding operations." In space, small human ships began flying toward disabled Vorthon vessels. These ships were fast and hard to see. Inside each, one was a squad of human Marines led by Sergeant Joe Parker. Sergeant Parker was not a big man, but he was strong and smart. He had trained for 12 years to fight Vorthons in close combat. His squad wore special armor that let them move in zero gravity as easily as walking on Earth. "All right, people," Parker said to his Marines as their ship approached a damaged Vorthon cruiser. "Remember your training. Vorthons are strong, but they're not used to fighting in zero gravity. Use that." The human ship attached itself to the Vorthon hull. Parker's Marines cut through the metal wall with tools that made no sound. They moved into the enemy ship like shadows. The Vorthons inside were trying to fix their damaged systems. They had 4 arms each, which made them good at working with complex machinery. But when the humans appeared, those extra arms didn't help them fight. Parker and his team moved through the ship corridors using magnetic boots and handholds. The Vorthons tried to shoot at them, but humans were smaller and faster. They could hide behind things that Vorthons were too big to use as cover. Clear left corridor, Parker reported into his radio. Moving to the bridge. Within 10 minutes, Parker's team had taken control of the entire Vorthon ship. The same thing was happening on dozens of other Vorthon vessels across the battlefield. Back on Zix's command ship, the Vorthon commander was getting more bad news every minute. "Sir, we've lost contact with 47 ships. The humans are boarding our vessels and taking them over." Zix couldn't believe what he was hearing. "That's impossible. No species has ever successfully boarded a Vorthon ship. Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered before. They use the zero-gravity environment against us. They know exactly where our weak points are." On Europa, Dr. Kevin Hayes was watching the battle through his laboratory computers. He was a thin man with messy brown hair and excited green eyes. For 10 years he had been creating weapons designed specifically to fight Vorthons. "Yes," he said to himself as he watched his energy beams destroy another Vorthon ship. "The frequency modulation is working perfectly." Dr. Hayes had discovered that Vorthon armor had a weakness. It was strong against most energy weapons, but if you used exactly the right frequency, it became as weak as paper. The Vorthons had never told anyone about this weakness because they thought no one would ever figure it out. But humans were very good at figuring things out. On the Iron Will, Commander Taylor received a message from Admiral Morrison. "Beth, the Vorthon reinforcements are jumping into the system. We're about to have company." Taylor looked at her tactical display. 200 more Vorthon ships had just appeared at the edge of the solar system, but instead of worry, she felt excited. "All ships prepare for Phase 2. What the new Vorthon ships saw made no sense to them. The first Vorthon fleet was scattered and broken. Half the ships were dead in space. The other half had been captured by human marines. And the human fleet didn't look damaged at all. The leader of the reinforcement fleet, Admiral Krex, opened a communication channel to the humans. "Human vessels, you have won this battle through trickery and surprise, but you cannot defeat the full might of the Vorthon Empire. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick." Admiral Morrison herself answered from Earth. "Admiral Krex, this is Admiral Morrison. We've been studying your empire for 38 years. We know about your reinforcement fleets. We know about your reserve forces. We know about your home worlds. What you don't know is that this isn't our full fleet either." As she spoke, space around the new Vorthon ships began to fill with more human vessels. They came from behind planets, from inside asteroid fields, from places the Vorthons hadn't even thought to look. The humans had been hiding ships throughout the entire solar system. Admiral Krex watched his tactical display with growing horror. He had brought 200 ships to rescue the first fleet. Now he was facing over 1,000 human vessels, and more were appearing every minute. "How many ships do you have?" he whispered. Admiral Morrison's voice came back calm and cold. "Enough. We've been building them for 40 years, Admiral. Every day that you spent conquering Federation worlds, we built more ships. Every day that you felt confident and powerful, we prepared for this moment." The second battle began, but it was even more one-sided than the first. The human fleet moved like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly what every other ship was doing. They had practiced this battle in simulations thousands of times. Within 3 hours, both Vorthon fleets were either destroyed or captured. The mighty Vorthon Empire, which had never lost a battle, had been completely defeated in a single day. Commander Zix, now a prisoner on a human ship, asked Sergeant Parker a question that had been bothering him. "How long have you been planning this?" Parker looked at the defeated alien commander. "Since the day we learned you existed. Humans are patient, Commander. We can wait as long as it takes to protect the people we care about. And when we finally act, we make sure we win." The war that was supposed to conquer the galaxy had ended before it really began. Earth had spoken at last, and the universe would never be the same. 6 months after the battle at Earth, Captain Jake Murphy stood in the Grand Council chamber on Centauri Prime. The huge room was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Aliens of every shape and size sat in curved rows of seats, all facing the center where a human woman was speaking. Senator Paul Grant stood at the speaker's podium, looking calm and confident. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and kind eyes, but Jake knew that behind those kind eyes was a mind that had helped plan the greatest military victory in galactic history. "Fellow members of the Galactic Federation," Senator Grant said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "6 months ago you thought humanity had abandoned you. You believed Earth had hidden in fear while the Vorthan Empire destroyed your worlds." The alien representatives listened quietly. Many of them looked embarrassed. Some looked angry. A few looked scared. "Today," Grant continued, "I stand before you to explain why Earth went silent, and why we will never let such a threat grow in darkness again." In the back of the chamber, Agent Marie Collins sat with other humans. She still wore her blonde hair, short, but now she wore a human uniform instead of Vorthon armor. For 15 years she had lived among the Vorthons, learning their secrets. Now she was home. "The truth," Senator Grant said, "is that we knew about the Vorthons for 38 years. We had agents in their society. We studied their technology. We learned their weaknesses. And we prepared." A Zephyrian delegate stood up. His blue skin was pale with worry. "Why didn't you warn us? Millions died while you prepared." Grant nodded sadly. "Yes, they did. And every human leader who made this decision carries that weight. But warnings would not have saved those lives. The Vorthans were too strong for any single Federation world to resist. Only by learning everything about them could we find a way to stop them completely." Dr. Lisa Carter sat next to Jake in the visitor section. She had been studying the captured Vorthan technology for months. "Jake," she whispered, "the medical reports from the Vorthan homeworlds are incredible. Their entire empire surrendered when they learned what happened to their fleets." Jake nodded. The news had spread quickly through Vorthan space. Their greatest fleets, led by their best commanders, had been destroyed by a species they thought was weak and peaceful. Fear had done what weapons could not. The Vorthan Empire had collapsed from within as different groups fought for power. On the stage, Senator Grant activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy as it was now. The red markers that once showed Vorthan positions were gone. Blue markers showed Federation worlds free again, and green markers showed new human military bases on dozens of worlds. "The Federation Council has asked Earth to take responsibility for galactic defense," Grant announced. "We have accepted this responsibility. Human military academies will be built on 50 Federation worlds. Human officers will train your defense forces, and human fleets will patrol the outer rim, watching for new threats." Admiral Kate Morrison stood up from her seat in the front row. She was wearing a new uniform with extra symbols showing her rank as Supreme Commander of Federation forces. "The age of surprise attacks is over," she said firmly. "Earth will watch the galaxy's borders. We will study every species that approaches Federation space. And if another empire like the Vorthans appears, we will be ready." Lieutenant Ryan Blake, now promoted to captain, was working at a communication station in the chamber. He was broadcasting the meeting to every Federation world. The message was simple: Earth was no longer hiding. Professor Sam Mitchell sat with the other historians and analysts. He had spent months studying how the war had changed everything. "This is the beginning of a new era," he told his assistant. "For the first time in galactic history, one species has the power to protect all the others." General Chris Warren stood near the chamber entrance, watching the crowd. His soldiers were stationed throughout the building, but not as guards. They were there as teachers, showing Federation security forces new techniques and equipment. The general smiled as he watched a young Altarian officer learning to use human communication equipment. Back on Earth, engineer Nina Ross was working in her laboratory, designing new ships for the Federation Defense Fleet. Her latest project was a space station that could be built quickly on any world under threat. She called it the Guardian Station, and it could hold enough firepower to stop a small invasion. In space near Luna, the shipyards that had been hidden for decades were now working openly. Hundreds of new ships were being built, not just for humans, but for any Federation world that wanted them. Captain Troy Adams was training alien crews to operate the new vessels. The key, Adams explained to a group of Federation officers, is not to fight like humans. Each species has its own strengths. We're here to help you use those strengths better. Commander Zix, the former Vorthan fleet leader, was also in the council chamber. He was not a prisoner anymore. After months of working with human interrogators, he had become something like a consultant. He helped Federation forces understand Vorthon technology and warned them about other aggressive species in the outer galaxy. Senator Grant is right, Zix said to a Federation reporter after the meeting. Humans are the most patient species I have ever encountered. They think in decades while the rest of us think in years. That makes them very dangerous enemies and very valuable allies. As the council meeting ended, Jake walked outside with Dr. Carter and Captain Blake. The city around them was full of humans and aliens working together. Construction crews were building new Federation headquarters. Scientists were sharing research. Children from different worlds were playing in the parks. "Do you think it will work?" Lisa asked. "Can humans really protect the entire galaxy?" Jake looked up at the sky where human and alien ships flew together in formation. "I think we already are," he said. "The difference is that now everyone knows it." Agent Collins joined them as they walked. "You know," she said, "for 15 years I lived among the Vorthans. They were afraid of only one thing." "What was that?" Blake asked. "The unknown," Collins replied. "They conquered everything they understood, but they always avoided what they couldn't predict or control." She smiled. "That's why they never attacked human space until the very end. Deep down they knew humans were different. They just didn't know how different." As night fell on Centauri Prime, Jake received a message from Admiral Morrison. "Captain Murphy, report to the New Horizon. We have a new mission." Jake smiled. The war was over, but humanity's real work was just beginning. Somewhere in the dark between the stars, other threats might be growing. But this time, Earth would not wait in silence. This time, the galaxy would be ready. The universe had learned an important lesson. When humans go quiet, they're not hiding. They're preparing. And when they finally speak, everyone listens.